One of the arguments you often hear deployed against immigration is that were those immigrants to come into America, they would depress American wages. But is that actually true? Is there anything there? Joining us now, Susan Ferris, reporter for Center for Public Integrity. Susan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
And we're very glad to have you here to break down the facts underlying that argument. So Donald Trump has actually said this. It was part of his address to the nation earlier this week that immigration, especially undocumented immigration, depresses American wages. So what is actually going on?
Yeah, he's used that from the very beginning of when he started running for the presidency. And it really stems from his former Attorney General and former Senator Jeff Sessions and Stephen Miller. I don't know if you know this, but Stephen Miller was Sessions' aide in the US Senate. And one of the themes that they've focused on heavily is depression of wages. And they make arguments that over decades, immigration, and we're not talking about undocumented immigration alone, but legal immigration has depressed the vast majority of Americans' wages dramatically. And it really is, if you talk to the preponderance of economists, you look at reports, it's not true. There's one economist that they have heavily relied on named George Borjas from Harvard, but his models are models, and many other economists take them apart. I would suggest that your viewers, if they're really interested in this, look at the magazine story we did. We did it with Mother Jones, and it's on our website about the cherry picking and distortion of information to make this argument. And Trump continues to use this, and it's really just not true. If you look at the National Academies of Sciences report, which we explore in our big piece on this, economists generally overall think immigration is very good for the economy. It supplies workers for industries that are needy. It supplies growth. It supplies workers for skilled jobs and so-called low-skilled jobs, which if you talk to a lot of farmers or dairy owners, they'll say these jobs actually aren't that low-skilled. You need people to come in from places that actually know how to work with animals or do certain types of hard jobs. That's not to say that there aren't episodic examples of undocumented workers being exploited. That does happen. But to try to create a national scenario of wage suppression really is, it's not fair to do, and it's a rhetorical talking point that Trump has used quite successfully.
So there you described a few of the positive economic benefits from immigration, but in your recent piece, I also read about a few others you began to describe. So, and they often are wrapped up in myths against immigration too. So when it comes to like contributions to Social Security, those sorts of programs, as well as paying taxes, I often hear immigrants don't pay taxes. That's another way that they're costing America a ton of money. So what is the truth in that situation?
Well, many of them do pay taxes. Undocumented workers is what you're talking about. The accusation comes from that. They're working under fake Social Security numbers. Sometimes there's Social Security numbers that have been taken, put into fake documents, and people are using them. But I've covered this for about 30 years, and from the beginning of after that big amnesty that President Reagan signed, people were taking jobs using made up Social Security numbers, and they pay into taxes and into Social Security. They pay sales taxes like other people. One of the big hits against immigrants is, using public services. In the National Academies of Sciences report, what was found is probably at the state and local level, there's costs that are associated with immigration, with education, because families are younger and they have kids in school. But when you look at the investment in the kids, it then provides a labor force that pays even more into taxes because they're getting educated.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you started to get into there actually as well. I think it's interesting that you have this disparity between this community that in many cases will pay taxes, pay into Social Security, but has no legal ability to access many of the benefits later on from those, which seems like just a net flow of additional support to these programs that we often hear are so in need of extra money. But also I'm interested in the short versus long-term economic impact. So if you have a family come in over 1 year, 10 years, another generation, what is the difference economically in terms of the impact?
Well, the economists have found that there can be an impact of a few years perhaps, but that the economy adjusts and absorbs people. Another critical thing to think about with this, and you can see this on the ground, for example, in Idaho, where we went and did a story on a Trump supporting area that's utterly dependent on immigrant workers at dairy farms. Low-level dairy workers who are actually doing the milking of cows their presence creates jobs for all these other people, creates jobs in factories like a gigantic yogurt factory run by Chobani that's in Idaho, the biggest in the world, creates banking jobs, feed jobs, transportation jobs. And it was funny because there were people in town, the non-Latino residents in town, who seemed drawn to Trump's rhetoric, where they were convinced that immigrants were troublemakers and costly. And they had trouble reconciling the fact that it was true that they were taking jobs that others didn't. It's not so much they didn't want them, they didn't have to take them because they actually had the higher paying jobs that were created from the whole industry.
Yeah, well, Susan Ferris, I want to thank you both for joining us and also providing a more detailed and at the same time nuanced argument about the economic impact. It gets so oversimplified a lot of the time. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much for watching this clip from The Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.